Cropper's Nogales Auto Center, your local dealer of Chevy, Buick, and GMC. The best place to find the newest, award-winning Chevy, Buick, and GMC models. But there's more. Cropper's also provides professional certified service, parts, and a full-service body shop and collision center. Come on over and see for yourself everything Cropper's has to offer. Located at 1831 North Grand Avenue, Nogales, Arizona. www.croppercare.com, 520-762-6446.
Buenos días, Nogalenses. Aquí andamos en el Consulado General, right here in Nogales, Arizona, and I'm here with three lovely photographers that have some incredible works of art that are surrounding us. And we're here to talk about the exhibit that you guys have. That's La Mujer, através de su lente, and it'll be here all month. Before we get into that, I do want to mention to our viewers that we apologize for not having a show in línea last night. With what was going on with this, we wanted to make sure that all the attention was on the photographers and their exhibit. And so here we are this morning. So, how are you guys doing?
Very well.
Very well. All right, so why don't...
To be here.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm very, very glad you guys are here. This is pretty awesome. So, how about we start with introductions? I'm going to start with you.
Well, my name is Rachel Running, and I'm a freelance photographer, originally born and raised in Flagstaff, Arizona. My mother came from the island of Trinidad, and my father is American. I'm now a resident of Patagonia and Tucson, and have lived and worked on the U.S.-Mexico borderlands for the last 15 years.
Very, very cool. And Laura?
Hello, and I'm Laura Kish-Franca from Flagstaff, Arizona, and I was invited to join this photo exposition from Rachel Running. She is like a sister to me, and I work primarily with social media photography. So this is the first time in the 2D format that I'm presenting my work. So thank you.
Very, very cool. Congratulations. And Alyssa?
I'm Elisa Resnick. I'm also from Flagstaff and was also invited here by Rachel. So I spent the last 5 years or so in the Middle East, in Amman, Jordan. So I returned to Arizona, I guess, late last year. So I guess I've been focusing kind of on a different borderland. A lot of the work that I did in Jordan focused on refugees who were coming over from Syria. So I see a lot of crossovers with the same issues here in Arizona. So I've been really trying to focus on studying those comparisons and seeing how we can learn from studying both places.
Very, very cool. Now, there's some photographers that are going to be featured in the exhibit that aren't here. Do you want to mention them really quick and talk about those photographers?
Well, we have Amy Martin is also a photographer from Flagstaff who's will be here this evening. Our other fellow sister, Laura's sister, and dear friend, Dawn Fish.
And that's her work
And
right behind you
her
guys,
work
right?
is behind us. We were all mentored by the same photographers and having those influences. The other photographers are, I'm going to forget her name all of a sudden. Can I have some help with our Mexican photographers, Patty Blaine
Yeah, Patty Blaine,
and
Edith Aguirre.
and Edith Aguirre. And we also have the work of my comadre, Sue Bennett, who passed away about 13 years ago, and also the work of my mom, Helen Lau Running, who also passed away. We felt that it was important to share the work of the women who have influenced our lens from our community. And Amy Martin's work was featured in one of our Flagstaff Photography Center portfolio reviews, and so we've literally have watched her grow to be an incredible photographer dealing with border issues as well as international issues affecting women and children in Haiti and other places. We also have invited through the consulate other people to bring their photographs of the significant women in their lives to share, so we have space to honor the women of our borderlands in this community. So in a way, it's really a way of us as women coming together this month and always, and I think it's also a sign of the times that are shifting, and in this time of transition for the United States and all of us being affected by the news on the borderlands, that this is a really positive healing aspect to show our communities and our nation what does it mean to be women who love these borderlands, and being Arizonans and Mexicans who have loved these people and this land. So we're all concerned with environmental issues as well as issues for the children and for women. So it's all about community and women's relationships to nature and to each other. So I think it's a really powerful depiction of women, and it's very inspiring for others.
Very, very cool. Now, I was wondering if you guys would be willing to share some personal experiences that you guys have had in the photography, taking these photographs that are being exhibited here over the next month. Starting with whoever's ready.
So I think that my work has been focused mostly on photojournalism. I also work as a journalist. And I think that one of the biggest things that I've tried to learn being based abroad is to try to not see things from this angle of parachuting in and sort of taking in a scene in a couple of days and deciding that that's what makes up a place, that a Syrian conflict is what makes up the scene in Jordan, for instance, or the border, something that's happening on the border is what makes up communities living right next door to it. I don't think these places can be captured in, a 2-minute newscast, and they can't be captured in, even a single photograph. So I think the bigger aim is to maybe focus in on what people that actually live in these places every day have to say and feel about things, and try to capture with respect just kind of one sliver of that story with the knowledge that you kind of can't, you can only kind of be observant. You can't really be inserting yourself into that situation.
Of course.
So I think that I feel like some of the stories that I am trying to tell in this exhibit is some of the similarities between these two lands. Both have women that I have met with, that have this incredible resilience, and that have these incredible characters that are multifaceted. They're not just mothers or refugees or people who are migrating to different places. They're people that are like living lives and doing very specific things, or the people that have been there for many years, or people that are just in a specific time in their lives. And so I think that I tried to capture, just the multifaceted nature of women all around the world, and specifically within these two deserts.
Very, very cool. That's very cool.
I'll pass it to you to share.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at my images, and like I said, mostly these images are posted on social media, and sometimes they stand alone, and sometimes I do group it as a story. You can use multiple images on Instagram and Facebook. But when I'm looking at these are very personal images because I'm there, and they're part of goodness gracious, how I got to some of these images is maybe it was too windy on the lake, and we had to go somewhere else, and we shared. One of them is taken during the Me Too movement, and a new friend is just sharing just really, really personal a story with me, and I go, hey, we have our onesies. Why don't we go out and just have a good time and enjoy this space? And that's how the image was created, or this story. So they are very personal, or the march, when all the women got together in Flagstaff, it's called the March of Love, and people are showing up, and it's very empowering. These are all very, to me, personal and powerful, and with the women or just complete strangers that we shared in a snap. And that's what I bring to my feed, so thank you.
Very, very cool. Do you want to share what your social media tag is?
It's at Laura Kish Franca, and same with Facebook. You can find me there. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel?
Well, today when we're reflecting on this exhibit, the consulate and I have a 3 to 4 year relationship, which kind of began when I was looking to learn more about Father Kino. And we became friends, and I did my first exhibit here I think like 4 years ago, and so this is kind of a return. And when we were asked, when Christina asked me like that they were interested in doing a women's exhibit, she asked me advice like who would I recommend. So again, it's like I find that one of the things that's so great about our Arizona state is that we have as much diversity as we have in climate as well as in cultures. The border issues are not new to us, even up in northern Arizona with the Navajo and Hopi land disputes, and with what the indigenous people have been struggling with for the last, I guess you could say, 500 years. And the same thing, it's like we have a shared history with our border to the south. I've also learned from our friend Axel Holmes, and the perspective of having learned history, United States history, from the perspective of being in Mexico, from people like Axel Holmes. And when I lived in Chihuahua, Mexico, I was learning from archaeologist Spencer McCallum, and Juan Casada, the master potter, who's been recognized as one of Mexico's living treasures. I learned about the Mormon cultures, I learned about the Mennonite cultures, and also our ancient peoples' cultures, which, again, had no borders. And I think that from what I learned from friends and archaeologists, and from my own experiences riding with the Vista Cabalgantes, or riding with the Kino Cabalgantes, learning about this history, that really these borderlands are the gateway to the United States. And beyond the United States, it is the gateway of the Americas. And I really feel that our Americas is just like in the geography. A lot of us are here today, and Amy Martin and actually Don, all of us from northern Arizona, we all have a relationship with Grand Canyon. And so that is also one of our perspectives, of seeing the cultural perspectives as well as the environmental perspectives and impact that is happening right now on our borders. And ironically, as like a Grand Canyon River guide, where we all help people stay hydrated, how to go to the bathroom, how to be safe in the wilderness, how to not litter in the wilderness, to be land stewards. I have witnessed the exact opposite here on the borderlands. So at the same time that we're watching women being arrested or cited for littering, I have personally witnessed littering by sadly our U.S. military who and their building of these walls that seem to me really unnecessary. And if we were to actually work on legislation of friendship and collaboration, which is how it used to be until the most recent history, it seems. Being in Mexico, I also watched the escalation of the militarization of the border, and that's what helped us to do exhibits and Flagstaff to inform our community. So I think this is still like we're building on these things. And also what's really special in this exhibit is we have the collaboration with NAU's Special Collections Library featuring the work of Sue Bennett and sharing her work with us in this community at this time. Sue was like my comadre, and I watched her develop as a photographer, and she brought back images from Palestine, from the Tarahumara country, from Copper Canyon, and also, again, they were inspired to go to Palestine because of the Navajo Hopi land dispute and the water and the land that was happening up in northern Arizona. So we can also see that kind of happening here. As a photographer who's looked at work since I was born, I think this exhibit shows a wonderful diversity with our other photographers from Mexico. There's a sensitive lens of looking at people who are struggling on the streets to also Patty Blaine's examples of children, surviving or abuse, as well as women. And I think she does that very beautifully in her own special way, because it's not every day like we can see propaganda about violence towards women, but it's very rare when we actually see a photograph of a woman who has survived a moment, and yet it's here as a dialogue to help us look at the hard things that we're having to face, as well as to be inspired by what brings us together as women. And I think that's really important at this time, at this crossroads.
Absolutely. Now, there's some really, really beautiful photography that you guys have out here today. I mean, I know yours isn't quite out quite yet, but it will be out for tonight.
Yes.
I'm excited to see that one. And all of them have very, very personal feel to every photograph that I'm seeing. Has a very, very personal story that each one tells. And well, you showed me when we walked around some of your mom. So and do you want to talk about your mom real quick? I mean, some of her.
Oh boy, that almost brought a tear to my eye. Well, my mom, Helen Lau Running, passed away about 4 years ago from brain cancer. And one day, after reflecting, after walking with her on that journey, on the cancer journey, I realized that my mother, coming from the island of Trinidad and the West Indies, that she's a Afro-Caribbean Chinese woman who married a Marine, a U.S. Marine, and came to Arizona, and how she fell in love with the people, the Mexican people who embraced her in the neighborhood when she was pregnant with me, as well as the indigenous communities. And I feel that Helen's lens is probably one of the strongest, most influential voices. But as a mother and a former wife of my father, as we've seen in the past with so many artists, it's like usually the mothers and women are least acknowledged. So it's through that compassionate heart of her lens that was not the seed of racism that is like what we're vetting out right now, or what we're learning about right now in this present time. And I feel that her lens of influenced the work of my father, John Running's work, which then influenced the work of Sue Bennett's work, which influenced Dawn, Laura, myself, Alyssa. There's a thing about passing that forward, and as photographers, of not just looking at a culture from an outside perspective, that there's an aspect of what my mother taught us, or taught me, and has taught my father, and taught our community in Flagstaff, was this acceptance and a way to be with people. And I think that's where I could say that all the work that's here today is not an outside lens. It's like there's a respect and a openness to learn from the people and the land what those relationships are, and to give it space and voice. I think this is a really important example for this time in history, where we as Americans, as from the United States, that really our true treasure is in the way that we're going to learn how to embrace our friendship and relationships, familial relationships, as well as cultural relationships with Mexico and our indigenous peoples of this America. I did a show in New York one time in 2012, and I asked my East Indian taxi cab driver what he thought about immigration. And he, with tears in his eyes at 1 o'clock in the morning driving me from the airport, he started to cry, and he said, "I wish America could be more like New York City, because we have everything. We have every language, we have every religion, we have every culture." And that is something I feel is reflected here on these borderlands. This is the most important crossroads that we are facing right now as a nation, and as globally as well, and as personal, that how we can grow as human beings in a way to be. And our relationship to the land. We have so much to learn, and to help protect our rivers, and help protect the indigenous knowledge and these stories. So those are things that I learned from Helen growing up, and then also reflecting upon her life. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to include her in this work, as to bring that presence of her openness, and how it was a small voice, but it has had great influence.
Okay. Now, you talked a lot about your influence for this specific project, which is the contrast between the two different borderlands, the two different deserts. But what's your inspiration as a photographer?
Wow. That's a big question. Do you mean with these two comparisons?
Not just with these two comparisons, and personally.
Well, I have always liked to tell stories, and ask people their stories and learn things from people. So to me, journalism is a job where you basically get paid sometimes to to learn new things, which in my opinion is one of the best jobs you can have. And I think it was definitely in Flagstaff partially that I learned from Rachel how to approach photography in a way that was reflective of the way that I wanted to tell stories. So to me, it's always been a medium that complements telling stories in like a reportage way, because photos do tell things that writing cannot. But I think that they do go hand in hand. So for me, I think shifting to, I think more and more reporting and media tends to drive like this need to sum up a place and sum up a situation. So I think photography kind of lets that space breathe a little bit, because it doesn't pretend like it's trying to give you everything in 1,000 words or a 2-minute newscast, right? I mean, it kind of just lets something be as it is, and that's one of my favorite things about it. So coming back to Arizona, I've spent a lot of time focused on migration from the perspective of people in the Middle East, whether they're fleeing violence or coming to the Middle East for better opportunities. I mean, I've also worked on stories with women from Southeast Asia who are coming to work in textile in Jordan, which is something that I think people wouldn't normally imagine as a migration when we talk today about migration. So I think that looking at it in terms of my home state is something that I am excited about focusing on, because my grandma is also from Sonora, and she's always been in Phoenix. So kind of trying to delve into personally how that impacts my own story and how I fit into that situation with her, and trying to unravel her own stories, because little by little she's been able to tell me some of what Scottsdale looked like before it was Scottsdale, right? When it was like a dirt road and there were orange groves everywhere. So I think that she, and I guess informing this place with my own experiences is something I'm trying to look more into because I've been focused on somewhere farther away for a long time. So she's also she's pictured in this exhibit, and yeah, I guess it's kind of part of a process of coming home and trying to tell new stories from a new place.
What a way to do it. Very cool. Very cool. Now,
I didn't know your grandma's from Sonora. That's awesome.
so Laura, your photography, it's unique in the sense that you use a phone. Your primary platform is social media, and there's some incredible framing, some incredible photographs that you have that, like you said, they tell some great stories. And photographers, storytellers, absolutely. But what inspired you to start getting into photography? What inspired you to take part in this exhibit?
I think just being a creative person, it's always been in my life. So when I first moved back to Flagstaff, Arizona, we shared space. So I always had like a real camera in the past, and so I had access to a dark room. I just never pursued it full time. So when these smartphones came on the market and the cameras got better and better in them, and just it provided a platform for me to start taking these images. And I didn't think, I needed to get some pictures for Instagram. It's kind of like I take the photos and I don't actually post right away. I actually sit with them and really kind of put thought into them, how I present them. And so that's that creative process that this little computer has provided. So I think in that regard, it's really just it's fun. And that's what I like about it.
I have another question though. Do you use an iPhone?
It's iPhone.
Oh no. Just kidding.
It's still,
I have Android.
and I don't go through the phones. I'm not kind of person that wants the newest, biggest technology and stuff. I don't have a TV. I don't, it's like I'm still on an iPhone 6 Plus. One thing I do recommend is get a lot of memory. Because and that's one thing is I take a lot of images. There's a lot of bad images, stuff like, oh my God, that's terrible. But at the same time, it's a creative process.
That's my philosophy when it comes to photography. I just shoot until I find one that looks good.
I'm pretty blind sometimes, and it's I'm pointing at, I don't really see, but I know. You kind of get used to it, to your equipment or what you guys are working with, and you rely on some stuff. So it's the process.
Very cool. So now we'll start with you again, Laura. This is probably going to be our wrap-up question. It's what do you hope for people to walk away from after seeing this exhibit?
Oh, I think it's just, well, for me already, it's it feels like a great big hug. It really does. It's hard to tell when you.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's when Rachel was talking about and joining this, first of all, I felt really intimidated because I feel like I'm not the working photographer here. But then when things start going up and and I'm looking around, you'll get to see it later. You guys should come out and check it out. It feels like, wow, it's really this empowering kind of big hug. And that's what I want people to take away from it.
Very cool. And what about you?
Well, I feel that this exhibit is really special in the sense that, as Laura says, it is a big embrace. And it's, I haven't seen Laura in a long time. I haven't seen Alyssa for almost 8 years since she left. And again, it's the beauty of what we are as Arizonans who love our borderlands, whether it's north and south. And in this time when I feel that there's so many images that cause people so much pain and grief, and the media, again, is not being very discerning, what it's feeding us as viewers. And again, I also, like Laura, do not have a TV. I don't. I kind of glance in and have a kind of love-hate relationship with the social media. But sometimes, again, it's the power of a small voice. Again, somebody like Helen, like my mom, who maybe didn't pass away as a famous photographer, but when people remember her, they remember her kindness, they remember her empathy, they remember her strength. And I think this is one of the feelings that does come across in this exhibit is there is all of these elements that remind us of those elements within ourselves, and how that we can also document our lives. So I hope that people will feel inspired, whether to pick up their old camera or to use their phone camera, to look at their lives and to take time to appreciate the moments that they're experiencing and to share those. Because sometimes I think with the social media, we're also, like as Laura was reflecting on, like we're posting to put it like out right at the very second. I'm like her too. Like I don't necessarily post it right at the moment. But also, like, how do we use the social media and the ability with all this technology to reflect on our own lives and to deepen that relationship within ourselves? I think we are in a time when we are definitely all aching for more empathy and healing from this very difficult period of transition and rebirth. So that's also another symbol of women. Like we are helping to support with this exhibit the rebirth of our borderlands and to inspire this community as it has inspired us.
Absolutely. That's great.
I think that Laura and Rachel both summed it up really, really well. It's it's an atmosphere that's really welcoming and really beautiful and inclusive of many different voices, both big and small. I was also very intimidated to be a part of this exhibit because I haven't been here for a long time and I've only just restarted exploring this area. But I think that what I would like people to see is, again, like the diversity of not just this region, but women in all their different forms. I mean, as seen through the eyes of Laura and Rachel and Dawn and every other woman whose work is exhibited here. I think it's really amazing to see just the breadth of people that are involved in it. And so I would like people to, I guess, just be able to kind of glimpse into this window of many different lives and take away what they will from it and hopefully get a new perspective that maybe they don't see on this barrage of like Twitter news and your like Instagram news clips. This is the better Instagram,
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
All right. So we are going to wrap up, but I do want to make sure that everyone watching knows that you're invited. You can come tonight at 6 p.m. is the opening of the exhibit, and it will be going all month, which is International Women's Month. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're celebrating here at the consulate. And I mean, you can look at the photographs through pictures or video that we're showing on the phone, but that's doesn't compare to actually being here and experiencing this photography. It's haunting in some of them and just incredibly, I don't know. It's amazing. It's really beautiful what you guys have put together here.
And we'd also like to just remind people, too, to bring and participate by bringing a photograph or a copy of a photograph for the community wall. Again, I think was just really beautiful to watch the consulate receive us, as well as sharing their stories and making us feel welcome here, as Americans, in the Mexican consulate. It's very poignant, and our community wall, we'd like to invite you to participate in this gathering of heart. So thank you.
Very, very cool. And now you guys are also going to have some photography out on the tables, like some darkroom photography and stuff like that too.
Yes.
So it's more than just what's on the walls. It's a really great exhibit. Please take the time. If you have trouble taking the time, make the time to come down here to the consulate. It's right upstairs in the gallery, and it's incredible. So just a reminder that next week on Wednesday there will be no episode of We Love Nogales con Santos y Escas, but we will be back on Thursday with En Línea con Joe Wright, and then we'll have a brand new We Love Nogales exclusive for you on Friday with City Attorney Luis Parra. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this interview. I really appreciate it.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Gracias a ustedes.
Thanks for welcoming us, Nogales.
Cropper's Nogales Auto Center, your local dealer of Chevy, Buick, and GMC. The best place to find the newest, award-winning Chevy, Buick, and GMC models. But there's more. Cropper's also provides professional certified service, parts, and a full-service body shop and collision center. Come on over and see for yourself everything Cropper's has to offer. Located at 1831 North Grand Avenue, Nogales, Arizona. www.croppercare.com, 520-762-6446.